Losing a loved one can send anyone into a downward spiral of despair. Losing a second loved one at the same time is nothing short of unbearable. Yet, that's what happened to my guest, Jennifer M. Alemany. Devastating grief like that could have destroyed her. And yet, she's been able to move beyond those dark times to rediscover herself and help others deal with their own anguish. She's the author of the book, Mark My Love, which details her journey from heartache to happiness. Welcome to the Dream Power Show, Jennifer.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it is my pleasure. It's just an important subject to discuss. Um, so tell me, when did you suffer your losses, and is it hard to talk about it now?
Oh, my loss of my boyfriend, my partner, was about 2.5 years ago. The loss of my mother was about 13 years ago. But I want to say with this last loss, I realized I hadn't fully grieved for my mother. So I went into, I want to say, a heavy grieving mode. I want to say tenfold. I want to say it's not too hard to talk about at this point. I think that I don't want to say I've come to terms with it, but I feel their connection with me in spirit, and I know that they're around me. So I have a different relationship with them now at this point. So I'm able to talk about it. I think because of that.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting that you said that you lost your mother more than just a couple of years ago. I lost my father when I was 11, and the truth was I couldn't even say his name for about 10 years. And I think it took me actually until I was in my 50s to really fully, totally finish my grief over his death. So, I mean, it can be difficult and can be long running. Um, was the grief that you felt from your mother different from that of losing your boyfriend?
I want to say I think so. Obviously, he was a romantic partner I had, so I want to say it was different. I was heartbroken with both, but it was just a different heartbreak. I want to say it was, this connection to someone, a loving romantic connection, and that wasn't it wasn't severed because it wanted to be, right? He passed on, he got ill and passed on suddenly, and that was what it was. Um, but I still felt that connection, and I still do. It's just different. So that's how that loss is different from my mother.
Mm. So, when did you actually realize that there was light at the end of the tunnel, and that overwhelming feeling of grief was something that you weren't going to carry with you for the rest of your life?
I want to say, shortly after he passed, I went to a yoga retreat, and I want to say while I was there, I was hiking. I was in nature more. I felt his presence more, and I realized at that point I was in so much pain. But I realized at that given time, I was like, I'm going to take this pain and turn it into fuel and change my life around. I knew my career wasn't fulfilling at that point. Also, I had been an HR professional for about 22 years. I knew there were things that I wasn't completely happy. So I took that pain. At that point, I realized I'm going to take this pain and change things around for myself. I want to say in honor of him and in honor of her, but also in honor of myself.
Mm. So, what was it about nature that called to you and helped you?
I just I felt their presence more. I felt stillness. I was able to get still, I think, a little bit more when I was in nature, even though I had found stillness outside of nature, right at home or wherever I am. But this was different. It was a higher level of connectivity, I want to say, and my connection to spirit, and I felt them around me. So that's when I realized, it's something different was going on.
Mm. So, tell me a little bit about first your mother, what kind of person she was, and how her death affected you.
Yeah, my mother was a great person. She was a single mom, so she was my mom, my dad, and my best friend. I was her youngest daughter of four daughters, so we had a really great relationship. She was a good person. She loved everyone around her. She loved her family, um, and that's what I saw growing up. I could see her giving her love to her nieces and nephews, the extended family. Also, it wasn't just her children, and she was that way with her friends also, and the people that were close to her. So that's the type of person that she was, and what she raised me to be. Also to mirror that a little bit.
Mm.
Um, So that loss was hard because we were so close. I used to talk to her multiple times a day, um, especially in my adult life. Like she was my go-to person of, if something was going on or I needed advice on something. So that was a drastic loss for me because now this person was gone. And when she passed, I was about 33 years old. So I wasn't yet, I had built my life around her, to be honest. So now it was kind of like, okay, what do I do? So it was drastic, the loss.
So you say that you have siblings. Did you ever discuss this with your siblings?
We're not really close, my siblings and I, to be honest. So we really didn't get into deep discussion about it. My one sister was around when my mother got ill, but we really didn't discuss in detail, the loss, I want to say.
So you really kind of felt alone in your grief then.
Yes, I mean, I have a niece that was, my mother's granddaughter. She's in her mid 30s right now, so she was in her early 20s or so when my mother passed. So I had her, and I had a few cousins and aunt and uncles around. But for the most part, immediate family, I didn't have immediate family around.
Mm. And tell me a bit about your boyfriend and how his death affected you.
Yeah, him and I, we found love again. I want to say later in life. He had been divorced. I had had previously a long-term relationship that had ended. So I want to say it was, me finding love in my 40s, and he was in his 50s at the time. So we found each other thinking that maybe we thought we wouldn't find love again. So it was kind of this whirlwind, relationship that took off very quickly, and we knew that we'd be together. We had planned to be together for, the rest of our lives. Um, and he had gotten sick. I want to say it was about, I want to say 5 months into the relationship or so. He had gotten ill, and then he was gone 10 months later after the relationship had started. So it was this, you know, you're talking emotions going from falling in love to then crashing into grieving 10 months later.
So now that you've gone through this, what do you say to other people who are struggling with their grief?
Just to keep going, keep getting up every single day, right? Even though it may seem, one day you may seem fine and the next you're not. I want to say just to keep getting up. Is that what I tell folks, to continue to have hope, that there's love around us, that our loved ones are around us in spirit, and they want us to keep going and generating that love that they have for us, because it's still there. So just to keep going, it's important.
Yeah, I want to get into more about that whole idea of love. Because certainly as a coach, I stress self-love and the ability to love ourselves, to love other people. What does love have to do with the grieving process?
I agree with you with the self-love. I mean, that's an important part of it. I realized that I didn't give myself the proper self-love for the past 13 years when my mother had been gone. I realized that through this last loss. And that's when, now my self-love is, I'm the most important thing right now. And I realize that. And I think that's what, then we're able to love others and give that out, but if it's not there for ourselves, I don't think that we generate it in the higher vibration that we're supposed to, that we're meant to. I feel.
Mm. So tell me, how is your life different now uh, than it was before?
I'm thankful. I'm grateful. To be honest, I was always grateful, but it's another level. I wake up every single day, and I thank God. I thank Source for waking me up, and just another day. And I take it from there. So it's very different in a sense. And I'm not, you know looking at the small stressors in life and letting them, spiral me out of control like they previously did. I don't really get stressed out about anything. I have my prayers. I have my meditation. And so it's just, my life is in a different space spiritually than it was before, I want to say, and that's the big difference.
Mm. Yeah, sometimes when we suffer a devastating loss, whether it's a death or some other kind of loss in our life, we kind of feel like that's it. We're in this hole, and when you have that kind of feeling, how do you dig out of that hole?
Oh gosh, I want to say one step at a time again, I'll be honest, because I was in that hole. I think when my boyfriend passed, I was like, oh wow. I said I found this love, and it was dragged away from me, and like, what's the point? I literally was asking myself, what's the point of this? but something kept pulling me out of bed every single day and getting me outside, like taking a walk. Like that became a big part of it. I was walking a lot more. Um, and that's what kept me going. That's what kept me on the path, I want to say, even though I was devastated.
So would you say to find one thing, even if it's just one thing that you can look forward to?
I mean, you know, hope. It's there. It's still there.
Mhm. Um, you are also a practicing yogi. You said you actually had gone on a yoga retreat. So talk to me how yoga been beneficial for you.
Yeah, I started practicing yoga about 12 years ago. So a year after my mom had passed, I felt called to it. I found a center that was near where I lived, and I just felt called to take a class. I'd never done it before. And I just started doing it slowly but surely. And I started to feel better in a sense of I felt more connected to my body.
So would you encourage other people to practice yoga?
I think so. I think so. I think it's gotten, even if it's just bringing you the stillness, because that's what it started with for me. It brought me that stillness that I couldn't find when a year after my mom had passed.
And it also to me brings up the whole idea of just being physical at all. Because oftentimes when we're in that dark place, we don't want to do anything. We want to be just like sitting on the couch and eating potato chips and watching TV all day.
Yeah.
So that instead of doing something. So we're feeling the grief. Was it hard to do the yoga?
It was hard. I wasn't really doing an extended period of time, practice, to be honest. But I was able to pull myself out of bed and maybe just do 5, 10 minutes of it, to be honest. Just some stretches to move my body, like you said. Because what I did know when I wasn't moving and I was laying around in the bed more, I was getting more aches and pains. I noticed, and that was occurring pretty quickly.
Well, this is a show about dreams. So I have to ask you if you remember your dreams
Yeah.
and have either your mother or your boyfriend shown up in your dreams.
Yes, I do remember my dreams. I've been writing my dreams down, most of my life. But I want to say definitely since my boyfriend passed, the dreams were becoming more intense. My mother was appearing in my dreams more, and I want to say she was definitely giving me certain messages at times that I realized after the fact. And my boyfriend, he appeared just once. I want to say just recently, to be honest. He hadn't appeared before, but I just moved. I moved recently, location, so I think that had something to do with it. That I think I feel his presence where I am now, even though he was where I was before. If that makes sense physically.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Uh, and do you ever have conversations with them in the dreams?
Yes. Yes, I do. With my mom, I definitely have. We've communicated, back and forth in the dream, and I've asked her a couple of questions and she told me a couple of things. So it's it's been interesting. It's brought me joy, to be honest. And I love writing them down. I have a little book that's next to my bed and I write them down pretty quickly when I wake up. I jot down what went on. But
Yeah.
they're pretty vivid.
Yeah, so what sort of advice does she give you?
I mean, it's almost like I don't say advice, but she's almost like she's giving me just a heads up on things. Let's put it that way. So I want to say there was one particular dream that I had to kind of translate for myself, but I realized that she was giving me a message that my career was going to be coming to an end, um, and then that ended up happening at the end of 2020. My HR career came to an end at that point. But during the middle of that year of 2020, I want to say it was probably 6 months, over the summer. That's when she had given me that message, and it wasn't a direct message, but how whatever was happening in the dream where she had said that she had gotten laid off, and I knew that that hadn't happened in her life. So it was kind of like I realized I had to kind of decipher through it, and then through meditation I realized I was getting my own gut feeling, like, oh, wait a minute, I think it's me. I think maybe my HR career is coming to an end. So I was just with that message from her, I ended up just preparing myself. I just got my ducks in a row, basically saying, okay, if my career is going to end organically on its own, just make sure I have, some things in order. And then that's what I did. And then it did, my career did come to an end at the end of 2020.
Yeah, well, I I'm sorry that that had to happen, but I'm glad that you're talking about your having these conversations with your mother, because so many people, when I tell them that, loved ones can come to them in their dreams, they don't believe it. But you have no problem with that.
Yeah, no, I don't. I want to say when I was younger in my 20s, my grandmother had passed on, and that's my mother's mother at that point, and she was coming to me into the dreams with me, my grandma. But at that time, I was young, so I just didn't think anything of it, to be honest. And then now I realize, as I've become so evolved, and now I've said to her, "Oh, sorry, Grandma. You can come back in now. I didn't realize that I was kind of ignoring her at the time. I wasn't paying attention to them the way I am now."
Mm. Well, do you think that your dreams had any effect in you, helping you cope with your grief?
I think so. I think, my mother definitely her presence, um, every time she would appear in my dreams, I would feel calm and just at peace the next day. You know what I mean? So there was a presence about it, having her appear that calmed me down and brought me some joy. So there was something to it, and I think that my boyfriend not appearing for so long in my dreams, I know that also impacted me, that I wondered why he hadn't, even though I was speaking to him, he still hadn't appeared. But who knows what that was, but he finally did. So and that too, I felt very, very happy the next day, just joyful.
Mhm. I'm so glad you said that, because it is so important to realize that our dreams are there for our benefit, and we must start paying attention to them.
Yeah.
Uh, at the in during the intro, I mentioned that you wrote a book called "Mark My Love." Tell me about what prompted you to write this book.
Yeah, I started journaling about 2 months after my boyfriend passed. I went out by the pool and I just started journaling my feelings. And then the words were just flowing out of me very quickly, very fast. And it wasn't just about him. Words were coming out about my mom. Words were coming out about my own self love and lack of. I had such low self esteem and lack of self confidence in my life for different reasons, because of external things that went on. So that was coming out too.
Jennifer, how can people find out more about you and your work?
On my website, jennifermalemany.com. Um, I have my website there. All the clicks to get the books. The book is there, are there. I'm on Instagram, Jennifer M. Alemany. I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn as well.
We've been speaking with author Jennifer M. Alemany. I hope you've enjoyed today's program. Until next time, this is Debbie Spector Weisman saying, sweet dreams, everybody.